Good morning and welcome, everyone. This is Sally Dunn, and I'm a member of Loretto's Latin America Caribbean Committee. And we're really glad that you're with us this morning to hear about our experiences at the US-Mexico border last weekend. I have on your screen, I hope you all are seeing this, a graphic from the International Organization for Migration, indicating globally the number of deaths recorded during migration since the year 2014. Pretty horrendous numbers. I thought we could just contemplate this graph while Maureen provides us with a reflection to start us off. Maureen?
Morning. The reading I have is from Bless the Imperfect, and it's meditations, and the one I chose was by Alicia Ford. She's a African-American Unitarian minister, and it's called The Mosaic Makers. You are mosaic makers, practitioners of justice, called to respond to brokenness in the world, restoring beauty by joining in solidarity with the least of these, the poor, the undocumented, the wrongly persecuted because of sex, gender, identity, or race. You, mosaic makers, practitioners of justice, will minister to each other. This ministry needs your energy, your passion, your hands in order to thrive. It needs your wildly beating heart to animate the spirit. Being mosaic makers isn't easy. The pieces can be so tiny, it's difficult to see the whole picture. You always risk making a mistake and needing to undo. You will have moments of fatigue. You, mosaic makers, practitioners of justice, your work is an act of gratitude for those who came before and for that which is yet to be. How blessed you are, how blessed we are to be in this work together. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, Maureen. Amen. Okay, that was powerful. Thank you again. Take a breath. So I will tell you that Molly and I have kind of taken the lead in preparing a presentation for you this morning, reflecting as much as we could of our experiences when we were all together at the Arizona-Mexico border last week. So we've got a wonderful PowerPoint that Molly put together with a lot of our pictures and videos, and we're going to go through that. But we're real informal. So I would say to Bob and Dora when she gets on.
She's still waiting. She said she's not able to connect. Yeah.
Oh, I see her in the waiting room now. Here we
Okay,
go.
good. Okay.
Yes. So we would say to anyone who was with us, if we're on a slide and you want to add something, good morning, Dora. If we misstate anything or if you want to add something, please jump in. We're an informal group, as we all know. Okay, so we're going to get started. I'm going to share the PowerPoint.
I just want you to know Molly put this together with a sick 1-year-old. Not just putting it together.
Okay, I'm almost there. Hold on. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'll get us started. Thank you, Sally. Yes. So we spent last weekend based out of Tucson and crossed the border twice into Nogales and Sasabe. And on the next slide, we have the list of participants who were on the trip. So at the top, we have the LACC members who were able to be there. And at the bottom, our local guides, Bob Key, Dora, and Jean East. And I wanted to just pause for a special thank you to those three for being such gracious hosts and knowledgeable guides and spending so much time with us throughout the weekend. Next slide, please. So we were able to be there for 3 to 4 days, but with 3 days full of activities. So on the first day, Thursday, most of the group attended a presentation on the management of undocumented border crosser remains, which Sally will talk about shortly, which we have some maps of that were presented during that presentation. On Friday, we drove from Nogales to Sasabe, and on the way stopped in the desert at water stations placed by Humane Borders. Then crossed into Sasabe, where we met with all of the members of Casa de la Esperanza, had lunch, and then drove a few hours along the border wall with Bob and one of his colleagues from the Samaritans. And then on Saturday, we drove to Nogales, Mexico, which I guess was about 2 hours, an hour and a half from Tucson, crossed the border there to visit Casa de la Misericordia migrant shelter, where we spent most of the day. And then in the evening, had a farewell dinner and a really beautiful ceremony that Dora organized at the El Tiradito Shrine, honoring the migrants who had perished in the Ciudad Juarez Migrant Center fire last month.
Okay, I'll jump in at this point, like Molly said. So on the first day we were there, we were not all there yet, but those of us who were, Bob took us to the Pima County Medical Examiner's Office, Dr. Gregory Hess, and he gave us a very impactful presentation using pictures and slides of the work that his office does when undocumented border crosser remains are found and brought to his facility. I can't really begin to describe for you my personal feelings and emotions and reactions to what we saw. And Dr. Hess told us that he would, and it wasn't just for Loretto. This is a presentation that he does periodically. So there were maybe, I don't know, 30 people in the room. And he said that he was kind of going easy on us. He wasn't showing us the most difficult pictures to view, but I will just tell you that some of the pictures were rather difficult for me anyway to view. When he was wanting to use a picture of a corpse or fragments of a bone to depict various stages of deterioration that takes place in unprecedented heat of the desert. It was a very moving presentation, let me just say. This is a map that is maintained, I believe, by Humane Borders, which is an NGO there that that does lots of things. Dora is the recently named executive director of this NGO, and in addition to maintaining water stations, which I think Molly's going to talk about, they maintain this map of red dots, each one signifying this is where the remains of a migrant were discovered.
Sally, we can't see the map. It's still on the prior slide.
Really? Not on mine. Ooh,
It's not up
There
there.
we go.
interesting. Okay, now you see it?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. So, you know, I don't have any words, just anything else to say about this map other than just it's rather impactful and rather shocking to see all those red dots on the screen. And this is a picture of a red dot remembrance necklace. This is something that a jewelry artist volunteered to Bob to create for him and for us. And you probably can't read the description. It's kind of like on a business card, that picture. And then on the other side of the card, it says red dot remembrances. Your screen sharing is paused. Can you still see this?
some of it. We can see the red dot, Sally. Just
Okay,
read what it says.
I'm trying to.
Yeah, there's a grayed out over the writing, so if, yeah, you can read what it says.
Okay, I have a message on my screen saying your screen sharing is paused.
Okay, we can hear you,
That's
but,
not good. I'm going to stop sharing.
okay.
Start sharing again. How's that? Okay, and you can see this, everyone?
Yes.
Those gray boxes are on there still, but
Are
they
they?
kind of go away as you, let's see if they,
Okay, I will read this to you. Red dot remembrance necklaces are a wearable reminder of lives lost in the Sonora Desert. According to the Pima County Forensic Science Center, there have been over 3,000 deaths. I think that number is much higher than that now, close to 4,000 deaths in the desert. Human remains found. My screen starts, okay. Found in the desert are represented on topographical maps by red dots. The inspiration for my remembrance necklaces, which are made from tuna cans, I find while leaving water in the desert with the Samaritans. And I believe the I there refers to our friend and colleague, Bob Key. So Bob finds these cans, sends them to this artist, and she makes these jewelries, these necklaces. And when we come back to seeing our video or our audio, our videos, you'll see that I'm wearing one proudly. Okay, Molly, can you take over?
yes. So I will first talk about I'll talk about what we did on Friday, which started with a drive from Tucson to Sasabe. And on the way, we pulled over to stop at one of the water stations that's managed by Humane Borders, which, as Sally mentioned, is run by the famous Dora. So when we stopped, Dora pointed out a few things about these water tanks that were eye-opening for us. One was, as you can see, there's a large flag marking the spots so people can see them as they're walking. And also the tanks have these locks on them. Dora said that unfortunately there are a lot of vigilante groups that destroy these water tanks and destroy the flags so that migrants, first of all, can't find them. And if they do find them, they either shoot them so the water falls out, or sometimes they even poison the water. So Humane Borders, I think there are over 20 of these tanks throughout the desert. Humane Borders checks them weekly, both to make sure there's enough water, but also to make sure that the tanks have not been tampered with, and they test the water, make sure it hasn't been poisoned. And also when we were there, Dora said there's usually a picture of the Virgin of Guadalupe on the tanks to let people who can't read know that, it's a safe space and safe water. And when we were there, the sticker was in the trash that's in the picture. So it must have been taken off by someone are falling off. So we pasted it back on while we were there.
I would also point out that the flag is caught in the top of that tree and the flagpole is bent, indicating someone was trying to take that flag down.
So after we left the water station, we kept driving to the border entrance, the port of entry at Sasabe. So there is a very small population of a few people on the US side. And then I think someone I spoke to said there's about 2,000 plus people on the Mexican side. While we were there, we only saw 1 or 2 cars cross. There were 2 or 3 agents, but it was very much a small, a small and not very much used port of entry. And then right when we crossed over, we walked about 100 feet, 200 feet to Casa de Esperanza, which is the blue building that you see here. And yeah.
This might be the best view of the mural on the side of the wall of the building, which is fairly new.
Yes, I think I have one more picture coming up, but yes. So Dora said that she had someone who visited and said, what can I do? How can I help? And Dora said, well, what can you do? How can you help? And this woman happened to be an artist, and she came with her, I think, father, Dora, correct me if I'm wrong, and had recently painted this beautiful mural on the side of Casa de la Esperanza.
With her daughter.
With her daughter. Okay, thank you. And Dora, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, I know some people on the call have heard about, the number of people being dropped at this entrance, but would you mind just explaining quickly, like what this space looked like when all of the migrants were being dropped here at this very small port of entry?
Yeah, in 2020, that's when we discovered the humanitarian crisis, that it was happening in this very remote town in Sasabe, Sonora, which is an hour and a half west of Tucson, and in Tucson, Arizona. So we discovered the crisis and were asked to help. And we provided over 20,000 bags of food and water bottles for the period of about 6 months, until we as an organization and with the community and authorities from Sasabe, Sonora, were able to to not build a building, but to make this happen, which is the resource center that now receives our people that have been deported back to that town with no resources, and for our people. And we are serving also the community of Sasabe, Sonora. And we also serve our migrants. They are going north. They often come and get medical supplies, get water filters, juice, to get ready for their journey. So that's how Casa Esperanza came alive. And this Sunday, we are going to celebrate our 2nd anniversary. So wish you all were here, because it's going to be a big fiesta. It's going to be lots of people, children, piñatas. And we're also going to cut the ribbon for the new playground that was donated and built by Veterans for Peace. And that is at the heart of the town and at the plaza, where very often our asylum seekers are right across that plaza, waiting at the houses of their smugglers when it's the right time to cross or present. So thank you. I know I took more, but
No, that's perfect. Thank you. Yeah, and as Dora was saying, they dropped or made over 20,000 bags of food. And I think you told us there were 150 plus people dropped every day at this tiny entrance in the middle of the night. Many of whom were not Mexican, so didn't know where they were, had no resources. So this center grew out of that with Dora and the community's incredible work. Sally, I think we can go to the next slide. Here's a close-up of the mural and the entrance, which you can see it was just so uplifting and that beautiful blue against the blue sky.
Hmm.
And then the next slide. This is the
Uh,
back of the building. And as noted on the slide here, Loretto special needs funds were used to build this overhang that was just completed, and we're hoping to get additional funds to put a concrete slab underneath. And right inside that door is the kitchen that can get very hot, and it was hot in the sun as well, even though it's not even the heat of summer yet. So the staff expressed gratitude for the shade and the need to have that extra space to really utilize the yard around the building.
And the cement will, the monsoons come in July. And it just turns into mud. So that's why the slab is needed.
Thank you. So right when you walk inside, there's this beautiful sign that says, welcome to Casa de la Esperanza, which is like the House of Hope. All of our services are free. And then it has a list of the services. So food, a change of clothes, hygiene products, bathroom, shower, call to your family, education about the risks of crossing the border and your rights. Your life matters a lot. And we got a taste of how the center offered some of these services. I think it's on the next slide. Yeah, so you can see here the hygiene kits that are all waiting, pre-packed, all of these wonderful clothes and shoes that are all free for migrants stopping in. And then on the right side, the water filter, which is called the Life Straw, with instructions in Spanish of how to use that. So when we arrived, we had a beautiful presentation from the staff. There, I think, are three, if I'm not mistaken, three staff members who make the food and run the day-to-day at Casa de la Esperanza. And one of the women is there next to Rosa on the right. And Rosa did amazing translation for most of the trip. So thank you to Rosa. It's very difficult work. And then you can see the women all standing together with their beautiful Casa de la Esperanza shirts and their Loretto shirts on the other side. And the women all introduce themselves. Most of these women are part of the Wednesday embroidery group, and they meet in the space every Wednesday to again hold space for the women in that community to enjoy time together, to offer each other support, and to make these very beautiful embroideries that they sell. And Dora's in charge of that operation, I think. But we got to see some of the work, and it was really beautiful. Some of these women, but not all, also participated in a retreat that Loretto helped fund a few months ago. So that I think that might be the people wearing the Loretto shirts there. But it was really nice to sit and share a meal with them in the space. Loretto and its supporters, including some private donations, we were able to present cash donations of more than $3,000 to support the work of Casa de la Esperanza. So we felt so grateful to be welcomed there and be a part of this project as the LACC in Loretto. So yes. And then as Dora mentioned, we also met this wonderful Veterans for Peace member, Mike Tork, who helped raise over $30,000 to build a playground at Casa de la Esperanza, and then also this one in the town center. And he was there for the whole day with us, such a wonderful man. And he explained to us, the process of building that with the community. And while we were there were tons of kids playing on it and grown-ups mingling around. So it clearly is already a very used space and a very needed space so it was really wonderful to see that. And anything else I'm missing there?
Nope,
Hmm.
good
Okay,
job.
great. Okay, so after we then had a wonderful lunch, crossed back over into the US side of the border wall, Bob and another Samaritan named Lori Jers drove us along the wall for several hours. I believe, and I might have this backwards, but the wall is 21 miles in this area with 23 gaps. And this is all part of the new Trump wall. So it's very high walls. You can see the construction and some of the vehicles as you drive along. But yes, every 3 or 4 minutes of driving, you see one of these giant gaps in the wall, which again, what is the purpose of this wall, of this time, this energy? God only knows. But Bob and the other Samaritans often drive this with water and food and supplies in the back of their trucks, and will stop at some of these entrances, which are oftentimes the very traveled migrant trails into the US, and they will yell out, we have food, we have water. And occasionally if there's groups waiting, right beyond these trees, they'll come out and grab supplies from the Samaritans and use that, while they're waiting for the next stage until they're ready to cross. So I think on one of the next slides here, we have a video of us stopping with Bob and yelling to see if anyone was there. This is just a video of the wall, so you can see the expanse of it.
We'll stop and see if they need food or whatever.
Okay.
Somos amigos, tenemos agua, tenemos comida.
Somos amigos. Tenemos agua.
So while we were there, we stopped at several. We stopped at several gaps, and we that day encountered one person who said that he was with 3 others. So we gave him supplies, and another car of Samaritans said that they encountered almost 10 people at one of the entrances. So Bob said it's kind of hit or miss. Sometimes he's seen up to 40 people waiting at one of those entrances. So it was just very powerful. And when you look at that landscape, it's an unforgiving landscape with not a lot of shade, thorns everywhere, rocks everywhere. So I can't even begin to imagine what the journey must have been like up to that point, and then what the migrants have ahead of them. And just on this last slide here, Rosa took this picture from the airplane, and you can see that line down the middle, the orange line is the border wall, all lit up in all of its glory during the middle of the night here. And this obviously is more of a where the wall runs through a city. But Bob had mentioned too that, you know, the wall is so bright in the night and there's people living right there, and how disruptive that is to have that wall just glaring at them 24 hours a day. So that was day one. I think passing on to Sally now for our Saturday experience.
Thanks, Molly. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. So as if that experience wasn't enough for us on Friday, the next day we got up bright and early, left Tucson and drove to Nogales, and arrived at Casa de la Misericordia about 10 o'clock in the morning. A wonderfully welcoming family migrant center, located, within I think within the city limits of Nogales. So a quite different environment and atmosphere at this migrant center. This is what welcomes us. So throughout our presentation here, you'll see a lot of these murals, all of which were painted by the woman who runs this center, just amazing woman named Sister LACC. And there is Sister LACC standing between Rosa and me, welcoming us and beginning to tell us about her time at this center and, the history of trying to keep it going during the pandemic. On the right side of the screen is a picture of Jean talking to some of the residents of the center. It's just, it was the most welcoming feeling that you can imagine, being with Sister LACC and the residents here. This is one of her gorgeous murals. Molly, can you read the Spanish and then I'm going to read the English translation?
Sure. El mejor lugar para vivir es donde no tienes miedo de nadie y de nada, donde puedes correr sin miedo y no correr por miedo.
Okay, and I can't get to it because something is.
The best place to live is where you do not fear anyone or anything. And then it's covered up, Sally.
Yeah, I know. It's covered up on mine too. I don't know why.
I can read it. And then it says where you can run without fear and not run because of fear.
Very touching. And I just have to say, I love the picture on the left of Mary Jean and Sister LACC. Isn't that wonderful? Smiling faces.
She has run other centers that we have been at in Nogales, La Roca and I forgot the other name.
Yeah. So Sister LACC took us all throughout the facility here, showing us one thing after another that she was obviously so very proud of. This is where we started, in this wonderful space for the toddlers, a library. When we visited, her center had 125 residents and 52 of them are children. So she has lots of spaces and facilities and things for the children to do, including school. She's got classrooms that she's established. And again, she was just so proud to show us all of this. She provides instruction and age-appropriate instruction for pre-K through middle school and high school. Just a lovely, welcoming environment. Another thing she showed us, they have an outdoor oven. I'm not quite sure what you call this. In a pizzeria here, we'd call it a brick oven, I think, where every Saturday the residents gather together, and they've got this whole routine down. They bake bread They bake, I don't need, anybody know how many loaves of bread they bake every Saturday? And it's for the entire week. They gave us each a loaf of the bread that they had just baked that was so hot you couldn't handle it. You couldn't, it was burning my fingertips. Delicious bread. And then on the right, there's in one of the outdoor courtyards, this water station has been installed, providing, you know, fresh, clean water, a drinking fountain, as well as ability to fill up your water bottle.
Allie, I wanted to say one thing about the school quickly. Sister Lika we asked her how long can migrants stay there, and she said there's no set deadline. It's until someone feels safe and, you know, that it's time for them to cross. And many of the residents waiting there are using this government app called CBP One, which is an app to try to get an appointment with the US government for, you know, an asylum interview or credible fear interview, I guess. And so a lot of them are waiting for that. So every morning they're logging on in this very short window to try to get that appointment. And I asked one teenage girl how long she'd been there. She said since January. But it seemed like some people have been there longer. Some people might have just arrived. So that was very interesting and emphasizes the need for that school. Because I think a lot of kids are there for quite some time.
Thanks, Molly. Thank you. She has 2 full-time teachers for the school. And we'll talk about that in just a minute here. This is a picture of 3 cute little dog houses that are out in the initial plaza that you drive into when you first arrive. I just loved what they look like and said, let's take a picture of them. The whole compound was just filled with just the most remarkable, uplifting artwork, all done by this amazing Sister Lika, who we understand maybe is no longer a sister, but that's okay. Everybody still calls her Hermana Lika. Now, we came back into Tucson on Saturday and participated after we had dinner. We participated in this very moving ritual that Dora had prepared for us at this shrine called El Tiradito. And we were there to recognize and call to our memory the 42, I believe, migrants who died in that horrendous fire at the migrant center in Ciudad Juarez. Dora brought these candles, one for each migrant death, and she brought flowers. And as you can see, we ultimately ended up placing the candles in the shape of a heart. It was very moving. I think I have a small video.
Eugenio Alberto Ramírez Torres. Presente. Jesús Adoní Álvaro Madrid. Presente. José Alfredo Hernández Muñoz. Presente. Eugenio
So as you can see, Dora and Rosa read the names of each of the migrants who perished in that fire. And for each, we responded presente and placed a candle in the name of that person. And ultimately, the total of the candles formed that heart. Dora sent me a text several days later with a picture of the shrine and said, they're all still there. And the candles are all still glowing. So Dora, thank you for that. That was a wonderful experience for us. And so we've come to the end, and we want to give, as the slide says, a very special thanks to Bob and Dora for being there for us. This is a meal that we had after visiting the shelter in Nogales. This was the first conversation that we were able to have to begin the discussion of how Loretto's LACC and Loretto Link's new working group, Fronteras Unidas, will work together. And this was a wonderful time of sharing and initial conversations. On the right of your screen is our farewell dinner. Molly making a special presentation to Bob and Dora, again, in recognition of all the work and support and love that they offer to us in Loretto. And of course, they're Loretto too now because they're Loretto Link. And so Molly presented them each with a gift card that we hope they will use for themselves, because usually everything they get, they give away. And I think that's the end of our slideshow. I'm going to stop sharing here. And before we open it up for questions or comments or what have you, we would like to give our new LACC chairperson an opportunity to say a few words to us. So, Rosa, would you like to speak to us?
You, Sally, and thank you, Molly. I'm so touched just kind of reliving that experience. It really is fabulous, and I'm so grateful for you to put so much work into it. Well, I just want to begin by acknowledging the fabulous work that our former chair, Mary Jane, has done over many, many years. She leaves not only big shoes to fill, but an extensive menu of activity, an extensive network on which to build on, and really an unwavering commitment and accompaniment, which serves as an example for us to continue to work in the LACC and inspiring me to go forward. Well, as you can see, after this April border trip to the Sonoran Desert, and I must add, our December face-to-face in San Diego and Tijuana, we are doubly committed to do the critical work of bearing witness, bringing hope, sharing in friendship. Those are our Latin American Caribbean committee values. And we come from these gatherings acknowledging the challenges and the sadness, the suffering that we see, and as well as acknowledging our privilege, and we're humbled by that in the process. But throughout, we are really buoyed and nourished by our deep friendships and our strong partnerships. So I'm so grateful to have our wonderful friends, Dora and Bob, and also our Jean, who is not here, but Jean East, as well as Paulina from Tijuana, and Nico from Casa de Arcoiris in Tijuana too. This carries us through our work, and you should be happy to know we are now going to be resuming these border trips, which is why we first went to see how things were. Because of COVID, we hadn't been ever to visit Dora and Casa de la Esperanza in Sasabe. We're going to continue with our key initiatives accompanying migrants and asylum seekers on both sides of the border, working with the diverse population of migrants, not only Mexican, Central Americans, South Americans, but Haitians, Africans, and also LGBTQI community. We're going to continue to work with immigrant rights and justice in this country, with advocacy and policy reform, continue in solidarity with the farm workers, and in documenting our work and bringing you Immigration Spotlight and bringing you these emerging issues. And in closing, let me say, we are all nourished by you, the Loretto community, and our tight circle of committed LACC followers, who you are, and our wonderful friends, as mentioned, Dora, Bob, Paulina, Nico. So we look forward to continuing with you. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. We want to continue, as Maureen said, having you contribute as our mosaic makers, working for justice and acting for peace. Thank you so much.
So Rosa, are you closing us?
I'm not closing.
Oh,
I
okay.
think we have a little bit of time for comments and
Okay.
discussion.
I was confused.
Yeah, so please, if there are questions, comments, I'll hand back to Sally and Molly.
Sally.
Yeah, the floor is open. Anyone have a comment or question? Sure, Mary Ellen.
Well, I'm just very interested. I thank you. First of all, this was really super. I've never been at the border, and it's just amazing to me, the information that you get and the sites that you see. I just have some curious questions. One is, when you travel from one place to another, are you ever stopped by the ICE people or the Border Patrol or anybody? And do they just let you pass by, or is there any problem with that? And then I'd like to know how does the Sister Ida, or whatever her first name is?
Lika,
Lika.
L-I-K-A, Lika.
Thank you, Lika. How does she, where does she get the funds to keep that center going like that? Is it strictly donations?
Good
Curious question. So
Good
thank
question.
you. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions, Mary Ellen. And I'm going to ask Bob to respond to your first question, because Bob is out in the desert 3 or 4 times a week and does have encounters with Border Patrol. Bob, can you tell us a little bit about what those are like?
Sure, yeah, I can give you an update from what happened yesterday.
Uh-huh, good.
We like we did on our tour along the wall, we came in reverse yesterday. We came down from the desert because we were out walking some trails to check on water that we had left and stuff. So we came down, walked to the very end of the wall, and then headed towards Sassabay. When we got to the wall, we discovered all the no trespassing signs extend to the very end of the wall right now. They were only in a small portion of the wall before, 5 or 6 miles. So now they go all the way to the end of the wall. Construction is, working on different things. So as we drove back east, we stayed clear of all the construction trucks and everything. We were very mindful. We pulled over one time and waited about 25 minutes so a group of big trucks could pass. We were very respectful of that. Then we took our trip along through the not along the wall, but through the wildlife refuge back down to an area where a lot of the migrants cross and asylum seekers. So we parked off the road about 30 feet from the no trespassing sign. We were going to have lunch. So we were less than 10 minutes. This agent pulls up, comes to the door. We had the doors open, and he said, are you having trouble with your vehicle? And I said, no. I said, we're having lunch. And he said, well, you're loitering and you can't do that. And then he says, he went on to talk about some other things and talk about, Spencer said that you were in their way. I said, no. So he got done with his spiel, and I said, look, we did not disturb. We were very respectful of the vehicles. We came through the wildlife refuge, and then we came down this road and we parked here to have lunch. And he said, well, this is a warning. He said, I could arrest you for loitering and impound your vehicle. He said, so I want you to know this is a warning. And I said, okay. And I said, can we finish our lunch? And he said, sure. Then we drove off. So my friend that was with me, Dorothy's going to contact Margot Cowan, a lawyer that works with the Samaritans. And she's been in communication with the attorney, or Pima County public attorney here, and they will not prosecute any of us. But we want to know, what is loitering? And because there are no signs that say anything to that effect.
Yeah.
So is when that comes about, I'll keep you updated. But this is all brand new. The boarding aspect,
Brand new harassment.
brand new harassment. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. But we were very respectful. We did not. We just let him talk, and then we said, okay, we'll leave.
Yeah.
So that's. But normally, like Tuesday, I was out as well with some Jesuits, and we had actually, we never saw any border patrol in the mountains, so we hiked and but we don't have any problems with the agents stopping us or anything like that, because they don't have authority to stop for traffic or anything like that. So we don't have any issues with that.
And Bob's vehicle has a sign on the side of it that says
We had
Samaritan.
our signs because we're very transparent. We don't do anything that's illegal. And, we want them to know who we are. And this guy, it was interesting because he seemed kind of almost stressed in telling us this. Like he really didn't want to tell us this, but this is what was coming down from, his
That's what he
bosses.
had to do.
Because he said, I know you're good people. I know you are. He said, you should be in the mountains with I said, we were in the mountains this morning. We just came down here to check. And he said, well, we've got this under control. And I felt like telling him, no, you don't. Because people will wait you can ask daughter, people will wait for days and hours. But I said, this is not the time to get into that. We'll let the lawyers take care of this, and then we'll see where we go from there, but they just want us out of there is what the goal is.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. And now Mary Ellen had another question about Sister Lika and her migrant center and how she funds it. Did any of us get that information from her?
Dora has it. And I think there are 3 churches or dioceses in Arizona. Is that right? Is Dora still on?
Mm-hmm.
I am. Yes, you're right. It is the Lutheran Ministry and the Green Valley Samaritans.
UCC Church.
Mhm.
They are.
Yeah. It is. So she is funded by different religious organizations, as well from private donors. And the only what I heard during the conversation with her, what is really stressing her is to find the $600 every month to pay the teachers.
Dora, I'm so glad you said that, because I was going to jump in and say that we have decided that given that education is such a strong ethic for Loretto, that we are going to submit a grant request to the ministry fund to help underwrite the salary of one of those teachers. She told us she has 2 teachers, 2 full-time teachers. She pays them a salary each of $600 a month. So we are going to request funds to support 50% of the salary for one of those teachers for a year.
And someone suggested that Loretto might have an education fund that I don't know if we have money in the education fund.
Mm-hmm.
So
We'll look into
I think we do have money in it. I don't know exactly how it's used, but you could always try. That'd be a good suggestion.
yeah, and the more we go, the more need we see.
Mhm.
And that's why Immigration Spotlight, to get the word out, because as the summer comes, what Bob told us in Dora, and is that the snowbirds leave. And so, but the migrants keep coming, and it's very hot. So.
Right, let me just follow that up and just say, because some of you have contacts with young people, they are looking for volunteers, you all, right? Dora, Bob, and other organizations in the summer, because the young people have that time off and they could withstand the heat and going out into the desert. So if for anyone who has contacts with young people, spread the word if they want to do volunteer service during the summer. That would be a great thing to do.
Sister Lika also emphasized that anyone who would like to come and volunteer at her shelter for short-term, long-term, she has open arms to.
They have a wing at Sister Lita's compound, I think that's what you call it, for special needs.
Yeah.
And they have, I think, 3 children, is that right, with special needs? And then they have another place for families with many children, individual, so that the families can be together.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
they
I
also-
note
they
that.
also-
Go ahead, Rox, go ahead.
We also teach adult classes. They're teaching trades for the adults while they're there. And I think Virginia was trying to ask a question.
yeah,
I just wanted to mention, I think the education fund is an internal fund for maybe for staff advancement in the infirmary or something. I could be wrong, and it's worth checking out. But I also think that it could be an attractive fundraising piece for LACC to, to sort of establish an education component of your work because of the loyalty to education within Loretto, and to figure that out somehow, to do, we could maybe do some kind of an appeal based on that because of the history of Loretto. I think that could be an attractive idea for people.
Thanks, Virginia. I do too, yeah. Okay, I note that we're at the hour and we normally try to keep these to 1 hour, but anyone who wants to stay on longer, we're welcome, we're here. So Beth, I'll give you the floor.
Great, thanks, Sally. Thank you, and thank you everyone for a very informative, inspiring presentation. That's very exciting. And especially poignant for me, I just got back late last night around 11 from El Paso. I've spent the last week with our sisters at Trowbridge. I stayed with them and spending time at Loretto Academy, our school in El Paso, Texas. And it was, of course, as you might imagine, really inspiring being around all these energetic high school girls. And well, it's actually a pre-K through 12 academy, and pre-K through 5th grade is co-ed, so girls and boys. And then the junior high and high school are both girls only. Yeah, it's just lovely and wonderful. And I went for 2 reasons, primarily to support our girls who just came to the UN for the Commission on the Status of Women. They presented to the entire school on Wednesday. And then also to do a little permaculture consulting with them about their grounds, because they have a huge campus and they're trying to figure out what to do with it in the El Paso heat and the Texas heat. So we're just starting in on that as part of their Laudato Si commitments. But I'm thinking in terms of youth and young people, we have these 3 high schools that we're still in touch with that Loretto founded. So in terms of like, maybe we put together a list of all these options for the girls and send them around to the Loretto high schools. That's just a thought for LACC, maybe in collaboration with other Loretto groups, because I know the migrants are just swarming right now into El Paso. And one of the things that one of our sisters, Irma Avila, does, who's a dear friend of mine from back in Denver when we used to work together, is she processes people at a place called Sacred Heart, which is now on the news because people are camping outside of Sacred Heart in huge numbers because they aren't allowed to stay at any of the El Paso shelters until they've been processed. And so, and they don't have enough people to process people. So Irma's working her butt off. I can see that. And so they're looking for more people to come to El Paso again and help with the shelters and help with the processing, especially bilingual folks. And so everywhere we look, because of these challenges, there's a need. So my question for Loretto, and I don't think we have anyone on leadership on this call, although Mary Ellen, I know you've been on leadership and you might have some insight into us there. But how do we, from a bigger picture, how do we think about how to best inspire our schools? And they are already involved throughout El Paso. And I met with the teachers who do the service hour requirement. They call it service learning. And there's lots of good service that happens. They're struggling with the learning part. And we had a great discussion about that. But, Loretto Academy for sure has a huge ethic of service. And I'm sure St. Mary's and Narings as well, even though the 4 values that we often lift up are faith, community, justice, and respect. So when we prepare something for them, and I saw in the notes, Molly, that you're working on that. So if you could frame things in terms of both Laudato Si commitments and then faith, justice, community, and respect, I think that will get their attention more if we use their language for their stated commitments. And that's one thing that all 4 schools have in common are those 4, or all 3 schools have in common are those 4 values. So yeah, that's really just a thought I had about how do we think more big picture? How do we think structurally about our commitments as Loretto, as a community, and Loretto Link now, in terms of how we support, operationalize, and get human bodies, who want to help to the places where the help is needed.
Yeah.
And maybe we also inspire or even challenge our schools to help fundraise for teachers for Sister Lika's place or something like that, in addition to what we can get through these Loretto grants. And I wish I could say I had the ins on how we get United Nations funding, to this. Maybe Rosa, you and I could do some brainstorming around that. I still haven't figured out the money flows yet and how all that works. It's very, very complicated. But anyway, thank you so much for the opportunity to just ramble and share some reflections from El Paso.
Thanks, Beth. Thanks very much. Appreciate that.
Can I just follow up on what Beth said quickly?
Sure.
Or no, so one, actually, I also want to correct myself. There may be a different education fund in terms of supporting certain schools like Marion Middle School and the Loretto schools also. So Mary Jean, I might be wrong about another education fund. But I will say that Loretto Academy and St. Mary's they do fundraising quite a bit. They usually often do it for Pakistan usually, but their first graders make collections. Faculty and staff have parties and make collections. And so and if this is presented as a need, I have no doubt that they would do a fundraiser like that. Narings has been much more of a challenge. But Jen Stead mentioned that wouldn't it be great to take students on a border trip? So, that's there's.
Virginia, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? One last urgent comment?
Yeah.
Mary Jean?
Thank you all. That's
Yeah.
about it, because it's